Welcome to another edition of the Rundown on this Wednesday. Going to be breaking down a couple NFL topics and a couple NBA topics. And I know I said at the end of Monday's show that I would talk about the Monday night football game between the Cowboys and the Raiders, but honestly, there's nothing to talk about. I know the Cowboys have improved their defense, but honestly, they're mid and the Raiders just flat out suck, so nothing really interesting there. So I'm just going to talk about other things, and the first thing I want to talk about is Michael Penix's injury. He injured his left knee, and he's been put on injury reserve, but it's honestly probably more likely that he's going to be out for the rest of the season. And his season has been a mixed bag so far, some ups, some downs. He's definitely shown flashes of potential with his arm, but nothing conclusive to say whether or not he can be a franchise quarterback. And now Kirk Cousins is going to step into his place, and Kirk Cousins is honestly washed. I hate to say it. He didn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence when he stepped into that Panthers game, and we all know about what happened last season where he got benched midway through the season because he was just playing so poorly. And now the Falcons are 3-7, and more than likely, they're probably going to end up with a losing record, which is really disappointing because I think coming into this season, a lot of people, including myself, thought that they can have a winning record and that they can contend with Tampa Bay for the division. And when you just look at some of the losses they've had this year, it's been really bad. I mean, you lose to Miami, who was reeling. I mean, they're kind of winning some games now, but still, they were reeling really badly. You got the doors blown off against Carolina 30-0 earlier this season. I guess they're an okay team, but still, and now they've just lost five straight. So they got New Orleans this week coming up, and I think even with Kirk Cousins playing and with Drake London not playing, they should be able to beat New Orleans because they are bad. But again, it's a division rival, so you never know. The GM and the coach, they're in trouble. And to be fair to the GM, Terry Fontenot, he's done some good things so far in terms of drafting offensive talent, whether it's Drake London, Bijan Robinson. They got Matthew Bergeron in the later rounds, and he's a really good pickup. Kyle Pitts has kind of been disappointing, but he was considered a generational prospect. A lot of teams would have drafted him, but he just hasn't met expectations so far. And they also got a little talent on defense, but unfortunately, the GM he just made a huge mistake in signing Kirk Cousins to a massive deal, 4 years, $180 million with $100 million in guarantee. And when you make that big of a mistake and it flops so badly, that's going to reflect badly on the GM. You just can't afford to miss on the quarterback spot. And if you draft a quarterback who's bad, maybe you can survive that. But signing an old, and I know this is harsh, washed up quarterback to a big deal, that's really hard to come back from. And I know they drafted Michael Penix, but like I said before, Michael Penix hasn't exactly shown whether or not he can be a franchise quarterback. So that doesn't spell right for his job, and it doesn't look good for Raheem Morris either because they were 8-9 last year and they were expected to take another step this year. And with some of the bad losses they've had, it hasn't looked good for him, and he just doesn't have a good record as a head coach dating back to his days in Tampa Bay. They got to get this quarterback situation right because when you have a lot of talent on offense, you just can't afford to waste it. And windows in the NFL, they close very, very fast. And I know the Atlanta Falcons have a lot of talent on offense, and their offensive players are very young, but still, you just never know what's going to happen 2-3 years down the line. And I've just seen this movie too many times where you have talent on the team, and unfortunately, it gets wasted because of the quarterback. Saw it in Tampa Bay with Jameis Winston when they had like two great wide receivers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but unfortunately Jameis threw 20 to 30 interceptions each year and they weren't able to win because of that. And it kind of got wasted a little bit with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but luckily the Buccaneers were able to luck in a Tom Brady. He came to Tampa Bay and they were able to win a Super Bowl because of it. Or with Zach Wilson when they had a crazy defense, but he just was not able to get the job done on offense. And then when A-Rod came back from his Achilles injury, he didn't look the same. And then Salah, he got canned because of it. And their offense just sucked with Nate Hackett, and it was a bad hire, and that's on Aaron Rodgers. And unfortunately, Robert Salah got screwed because of that. And same with Anthony Richardson. And now that we see Daniel Jones at the helm, the offense looks a million times better than it did with Anthony Richardson. And I talked before the season about that if this quarterback situation isn't right with Daniel Jones, it's probably going to cost Steichen his job. But they were able to sign Daniel Jones to a very cheap deal, and now they're winning games and they have a chance to be the one seed and potentially win a playoff game and maybe go to the AFC Championship game. So I don't know if Michael Penix is that guy or not. And I think if there's a QB in this year's class, and I've talked about how this year isn't a good QB class, but we thought of that last year, and the Giants identified Jackson Dart, and he looks like a franchise quarterback in his 1 year. Um, I don't think the Falcons' line of thinking should be, oh, we have Michael Penix, let's just keep him, let's just develop him because we drafted him top 10. I don't think that you need to do that. I think if there is truly a quarterback in the first round or maybe even second round, even though that's probably highly unlikely, most of the good quarterbacks, I know there have been a few good quarterbacks who have been drafted out of the first round, but most of the good quarterbacks that you find, they're in the first round. If there is a quarterback that you like in the first round and you think he has a chance to be a franchise level guy, I think you should just go ahead and draft him and, let Michael Penix and that other dude duke it out. The Falcons are probably going to have to fire their offensive coordinator. It just hasn't worked out so far, and they tried to make that move from him coming down to the booth to the field. I just don't think it's yielded any results so far, and that's the thing with defensive coaches. When you're a defensive coach, you have to get the offensive coordinator right, and they just haven't gotten it right. So they're going to have to get that right for next year if Raheem Morris keeps his job. I have a suspicion that he probably is going to keep his job because Arthur Blank is a pretty patient owner and he doesn't make any rash decisions, and he'll probably give Raheem Morris one more year before making a decision on whether or not to keep him or fire him. So pretty big year for Raheem Morris coming up. I said the same thing about Steichen going into his third year, and luckily he was able to find the quarterback situation, and now now the Colts are winning game, and now the hope is that the Falcons can do the same thing. And it's not like the Falcons have a behemoth of a division. So, you should be able to contend with Tampa Bay in order to win the division. So they just got to get that situation right. If not, Atlanta's going to have to go through another regime, and Arthur Blank is going to need to find the right GM and coach to take the Falcons back to the promised land. Now I want to talk about Shedeur Sanders. Dillon Gabriel went out with the concussion in the second quarter against the Baltimore Ravens, and Shedeur Sanders came in and started. Unfortunately, it didn't go very well. He was 4 for 16, 47 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And of course, his army of supporters are going to say that he got sabotaged and that the Browns don't want him to succeed because it was shared that he really didn't have any first team reps with the team. And there's been a lot of discourse about whether or not that's smart or not. I've heard like some backup quarterbacks like Dan Orlovsky and Luke McCown, who are career backup guys, say that's pretty much the norm in the NFL. Cam Newton said that when he was a starter with the Carolina Panthers, his backup Derek Anderson got 6 to 12 reps each practice just in case something happened to him. So I don't know. I think it's probably more common practice than not that the backups usually don't get any reps. And with Dillon Gabriel being a rookie, it makes sense that the Browns want to give him as many reps as possible. Shedeur, the stats say it themselves. He was pretty awful, and just to put more things into context, he averaged the fewest yards per dropbacks, which was 1.7 since Ryan Lindley in 2012. Fewest yards per attempt, 2.9 since Quincy Carter in 2001. But despite him not looking all that good, I'm just not going to excoriate the guy. The game plan was for Dillon Gabriel, so I'm sure when Shedeur came into the game that messed things up. And he's expected to start this week against the Raiders, so he'll get the first team reps, and the offensive line will know his cadence and they'll know his snap count, and he should be more well prepared going into that game. But he has to show something this week, and at the very least he has to be better than Dillon Gabriel, which shouldn't be so hard because Dillon Gabriel honestly has not looked very good. I know Dillon Gabriel has a lot of things going against him and that he doesn't have a lot of support, but still he honestly has played like the worst starting quarterback in the league so far. So if Shedeur is as good as his army of supporters say that he is, he should be able to look better than Dillon Gabriel. But if he doesn't look good, I'm sure that his army of supporters are going to find some type of excuse or whatever and continue to make excuses for him and say that the Browns are trying to sabotage him and whatnot. And I hope that he's good, because if he's good, then he'll continue to start and we can make a determination on how good Shedeur Sanders really is. But if he isn't good, he's going to get benched and Dillon Gabriel is going to start, and people are still going to be clamoring for him, which is kind of going to be annoying. I just want him to continue to start so that there's a resolution to this thing, because I kind of hate how this continues to be a storyline, and it's one of my least favorite storylines of the NFL season. This is kind of like Bronny, but at least with Bronny, he's been a good sport and humble about his whole situation. And I don't want to say Shedeur has made bad comments when he's spoken to the media, but he has made some immature comments, and it's just kind of been annoying. So I really hope that he can start and maybe he can show something good and he can show that he can play in the NFL, because I don't know, it feels kind of ridiculous for a guy who's in the fifth round. I understand that he's Deion Sanders' son and he did some good things in college, but it's just annoying that this continues to be a topic of discussion. I mean, at a certain point, it just needs to die down and the media has to stop talking about it. But I'm sure, in a year or two, the media will move on to something else, whether or not Shedeur is good or not. And until then, people are just going to have to deal with this being a topic of discussion. Now, I want to move on to the NBA and discuss a couple of trades. I'm going to make this twofold. I want to talk about Ja Morant first, and then I want to talk about Anthony Davis. And with Ja Morant, this is something that has been percolating for a little bit. Memphis is 4-9, and it's clear that Ja isn't happy. Ja has been pretty horrible, honestly. 17.9 points per game on 35% field goal and 17% from three. And it all came to a head when the Grizzlies played against the Lakers 2-3 weeks ago, where he showed very little effort and people called him out on it, whether it was former NBA players or just people on TV. And Ja is out for 2 weeks with the calf strain. And just going off topic a little bit, it's just crazy how many dudes are injured at this point in the season. Trae Young is out with an MCL sprain. Wembanyama has a calf thing. Paulo has a groin thing, I think. Jalen Brunson has an ankle injury. Zion has a hamstring injury, but Zion is always injured, so there's nothing new with that. Anthony Edwards had a hamstring issue, but now he's back on the court. And guys like LeBron, Jalen Williams, Tyler Hero, Scoot Henderson, they were out before the season. AD also has a calf thing going on. And I said this when the season started, when there were a bunch of injuries piling up, that the NBA needs to do a damn investigation onto what is going on and whether or not their medical practices or their treatment practices need to change, because it's just crazy how many dudes are getting injured at this point in the year. And I know lots of people have talked about how with the pace and the space in today's NBA, and with dudes being more athletic than ever and with new technology, it's just harder to play basketball, and maybe playing 82 games is just not feasible anymore. I mean, I do agree with that, but honestly, I think even if the NBA went to a 50-game schedule or a 60-game schedule, it still wouldn't matter. Dudes would still load manage. I think that's always going to be a thing. I think, honestly, if there were 30 games a year, there would be a few dudes who would low manage. So that's always going to be an issue no matter what. But anyways, going back to this Ja thing, Zach Lowe said that teams aren't worried about his level of play. They just chalk it up to him not being happy in Memphis, and that's the reason why he's playing bad. And I just think that it is time for the Grizzlies to move on. Memphis had a couple of exciting years with Jaren and Ja. They were the 2 seed for a couple of years, and then they had that exciting second round series against the Warriors, the year the Warriors won the championship, and kind of pushed them a little bit. But honestly, I think it's fair to say at this point that if Jaren Jackson and Ja Morant are the cornerstones of your franchise is just not going to really go anywhere. And I know these are different type of players, but it kind of reminds me of Dame and CJ, where yeah, you're good. I know Dame and CJ went to the Western Conference Finals one year, but for the most part, you're just a second round team and you're just in the middle, and being in the middle in the NBA is just the worst. It's better to just flat out suck and just, tank and hope that you can find a franchise level player. And honestly, I don't know how well John Morant is going to age. He's very reliant on his athleticism. He can't shoot the ball very well, and that's just not a recipe for success. And he also just appears to be moody, which also affects his on-court play. And I don't know, it's kind of reminiscent to Russell Westbrook a little bit in terms of just like, when the athleticism wanes, he just is not the same type of player, and you have to be careful handing out max contracts to that type of guy. But to give Russ credit, whenever he was going through anything in his personal life or whatever, he always gave 110% on the court, and he was always very good with his teammates. Not to say that Ja is a bad teammate, but Russell always had an upbeat attitude on the team and played very, very well, or at least he gave like 110% in terms of effort, and Ja just hasn't shown that ability. And the system in Memphis just doesn't fit him. It's less pick and roll dependent, and Ja is a fantastic pick and roll player. And as a coach, I feel that the coach has to adapt to the strength of the players. And I don't know, if you're not going to do that, and if the system doesn't fit with the best player, then Ja Morant evidently needs to go. And if you're hell bent on running a specific type of system, and if management wants that specific type of system run, then the players who don't fit it gotta go, and you gotta find players who can fit that system. And that's what Steve Kerr kind of did with the Warriors. I mean, that thing revolves around Steph. I mean, yeah, they make some tweaks here and there, but if you don't fit that system, then Steve Kerr isn't gonna play you, or you just have to go, and it just is what it is. So yeah, I don't know how many teams are going to want Ja. I'm sure there will be some suitors, but I guess the thing that sucks about Ja is that he's a point guard, and there are just a lot of good point guards in the league, and I just don't know if there are going to be a lot of suitors for him. I don't know, maybe Minnesota, if they think that getting Ja will help take them to the next level. I mean, they do need a point guard. I mean, I love Dante DiVincenzo, but he's not a franchise level point guard, and Ja, even though he has played bad, I think he can be a significant upgrade. So maybe they're the one team, maybe Phoenix. I'm not sure, but it's going to be tough for them. But I think it's just time for both the Grizzlies and Ja to part ways, and hope that they can find a franchise level quarterback to pair with Jaren Jackson, and hope that can take them to the next level. But I'm not sure about Jaren Jackson either. I mean, I like him as a player. He's a very good defensive player, but it just annoys the hell out of me that that guy can't get any rebounds whatsoever, despite him being like 6'10", 6'11". He averages like five rebounds, excuse me. That drives me crazy, but whatever. Now I want to talk about Anthony Davis. Like I said before, he's injured, and it looks like he's going to come back in a week and a half. And now with Nico Harrison getting fired, there've been talks about him getting traded. And I'm going to be honest, I know that AD is old and he's been injury prone, but I think the Mavericks should hold their horses. I think they should wait until Kyrie comes back and wait until AD comes back, and hopefully AD is able to stay healthy and he doesn't have any more major injuries that keep him out for a long period of time. But I think if Kyrie can be himself and AD can be himself, and towards later in the year they show some level of potential, especially with Cooper Flag. I don't understand why you wouldn't keep those guys. I mean, Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving have shown that they can be major parts of a championship level team. They're obviously all NBA players and they're future Hall of Fame players. And especially with the Mavericks having a young buck in Cooper Flag who's going to keep getting better and better. With that trio, I mean, why not give it a couple years and see whether or not you can do something? I mean, I understand that you want to wipe the slate clean. Cooper Flag is young. Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving don't exactly match up on his timeline, but all NBA players just don't fall out of the sky. And if Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving don't look super old and they're still playing at a very high level, just see where it goes in the next year or two. And then after that, you can make a decision on just wiping the slate clean and just starting over with Cooper Flag. And I think if Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving are good and you're able to get in the playoffs, that's good for Cooper Flag, and he'll get experience in big playoff games and understand what it takes, instead of just wiping the slate clean and you just suck for a few years and then Cooper Flag makes the playoffs and that's his first experience as like a first option. Why not get him in there as like a second option or a third option so that he can taste what it's really like, and once he gets into the playoffs later in his career, he can better take over in the playoffs, which is required for franchise level players. So If they look good, keep them. But obviously, if Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving look old and they're just not playing the same, and if Anthony Davis, which probably is more likely than not that he continues to be injury prone, then yeah, just trade him, wipe the slate clean, and yeah, just hope that you can find some pieces next to Cooper Flag and go from there. I want to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are 14-1 despite having no Jalen Williams and having Chet missing some games. Aaron Wiggins has missed some games. Lou Dort has missed some games, but despite that, they're still humming as a team, which is just crazy. I expected the Thunder to be good, but with them missing so many pieces, it's crazy how good they are. And they have a point differential of 15.4 points per game, which is leading the NBA. They're ranked fifth on offense and first on defense. And honestly, this is giving me 2015, 2016 Golden State vibes. I don't think that the Thunder are going to win 73 games. They can possibly win 70 games, but I think they're definitely going to, no doubt, win high 60s for sure. But they just remind me of like Golden State in 2015 and 2016, where they were this young team that was able to win a championship. They didn't have to go through years of playoff heartbreak like so many other teams in the past had to do in order to win a championship, and they're just better the next year. But unlike the Warriors team, the Warriors were pretty healthy, and Steph played 79 games, Clay played 80 games, Draymond played 81 games, which honestly feels like a lifetime ago. What's really crazy is so far, Shea has sat out 8 fourth quarters, and there are 15 games into the season. That 73-9 season, Steph sat out 11. And I imagine that Shea is going to set out more. And honestly, that stat surprised me. The fact that Steph only sat out 11 games, because at least watching that season, it felt like Golden State was just blowing teams out every night, and Steph had very long rest on the fourth quarter. But whatever. Shea is also having just another historic guard season. He's averaging 31.9 points per game, 53% from the field, and 38% from three. And he's just in his Michael Jordan era where he's the leading scorer on a team and he's able to lead his team to championships. And he was the first player since LeBron James to win a championship and win the finals MVP. The Thunder are definitely the favorites. You just got to give it to them. Shea is probably going to win back-to-back MVP. But I got to say, even though the Thunder are the favorites so far, and there's a good chance that they win 70 games, 69 games, whatever, I don't think that it's a done deal necessarily that they're going to win the championship. I still have a lot of love for the Nuggets. They definitely have a better bench than they did last year. Cam Johnson has been struggling, but maybe that's just due to playing with Nikola Jokic and just him getting used to his new role after him being in Brooklyn for so long. And Tim Hardaway Jr. has been excellent. Bruce Brown is still finding his way. I can't rule out the Lakers. Can't rule out the Rockets either. They're very good. But one thing I will say that is a guaranteed done deal is whoever makes it out of the Western Conference is going to win the championship, because just nobody in the Eastern Conference is that good. And that's just a poo-poo platter. I honestly don't know who's going to make it out. Maybe Detroit. Detroit has been playing very, very well. They got a shot. I don't know. Milwaukee hasn't had the best record, but maybe them. I don't know. Maybe this is a long shot if Jason Tatum comes back, but there just aren't a lot of good teams in the Eastern Conference. So whoever makes it out of the West is going to win the championship. I'm guaranteeing that, unless there's a major injury that happens, which because of that, an Eastern Conference team is going to win the championship. But got to give respect to the Thunder. And the thing that's really scary about the Thunder is that they have a chance to win back-to-back championships, and they have the Clippers pick. And it's going to be crazy if they win back-to-back championships and they have the number one pick, the number two pick, or the number three pick. And if that's the case, just 95% of the Western Conference should hang it up, because there's just not a chance in hell anyone is going to have a chance to beat that team. And the Clippers, oh my God, I can't believe how bad they are. I guess maybe I should have expected it with them being so old and Kawhi Leonard obviously always being injury prone, but it's going to be the year from hell for them, even though they've gone through many years of hell ever since they signed Kawhi Leonard. So, yeah, Sam Presti has obviously been killing it, and it looks like they have another gem in AJ Mitchell, who looks like he can be a lead guard on a very good team. But with the Thunder having so much talent, he's just has to sit on the bench. So yeah, I think though the Thunder, they're gonna run away with the number one seed, and they're at the very least, I imagine, going to make the Western Conference Finals. And, they have a chance to get knocked out by either the Lakers, the Rockets, or the Nuggets. So, any of those teams, I think, probably have a good shot of giving them a run for their money. I can't really see any other team giving the Thunder a run for their money, but those three teams definitely have a shot. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I will be back Friday to preview some of the Sunday games, maybe talk about some more NBA stuff if there is any more NBA stuff. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.